Squeeze the juice out of the headphone. Yo. When you take
I have to let that play because I really do love that beat. That's one of my favorite underrated Swiss beats of all time. All right. Two finals games are in the books. We're heading down to San Antonio for games 3 through 5. Now, if you're watching this, I'm going to be posting my thoughts on the EB Sports Portal about game 2. I'm going to save the game 3 thoughts for right here. So if you're watching this, make sure you read the site to see what's going on there. My game 2 reflections, because I got a lot to say about the block. The block, I should say. But game 3, Tuesday. Game 4, Thursday. Game 5, Saturday. If I'm looking at this series right now, there's two people who I'm really looking at that really need to re-examine themselves a little bit. Manu Ginobili, Dwyane Wade. Now, in my NBA Finals preview, I said that the series was going to come down to which one of those guys played well for 4 games. Whoever played better in 4 games was probably going to turn that series around. Now, let's look at something real quick. Dwyane Wade had 17 points in game 1, 13 in game 2, but he's only had 4 combined points in the second half. Manu Ginobili, on the other hand, he had 13 points in game 1 and only had 5 total in game 2. Now, if you have to look at the big 3 to say who's not carrying their weight as much for either team, it's those 2 guys. And I think we really have to understand that both these guys are hurt. But at the same time, both of these guys are clearly a shell of themselves at this point in the finals. Like, they're not right. Wade's playing with a bad knee. Manu might still be suffering some injuries from his hamstring. And it looks like right now both of them are just not themselves. Like, you've seen Parker, we've seen Duncan, we've seen LeBron, we even saw Bosh last game. We haven't seen those 2 guys. Those 2 guys are going to really have to, show up in San Antonio. Otherwise, it could be a really interesting series. Now, that said, Miami showed in game 2 they can win without D-Wade, and that's going to be a question is, are the Heat going to go to a lineup that doesn't have Wade as much to save him to pick his spots? Spurs may do the same thing. As well as Danny Green's playing, would you let Danny Green play a lot more at the 2 while Manu sits and comes off, Manu doesn't come off. Actually, Danny Green is starting, my bad. So you're going to play Danny Green more, seeing how hot he's been the last couple games, and let Manu just kind of like pick his spots as well too. But I really do think both of those, whoever plays well to both those guys is going to have to, turn the series around, because right now we're watching the decline of both of those guys in this series, and it's almost wondering, what do we see? For Dwyane Wade, it's kind of like we saw this coming a couple of years ago when LeBron and them came down there, because he goes to the paint so much, he gets beat up so much, and now we're at the point where he's got a serious injury where he can't do what he usually does. We see glimpses of him, but we don't really see him do it consistently. Same with Manu. I think he plays that same kind of like aggressive way, although he still has a great shot that saves him, but we're not seeing the Manu of old show up in this whole playoffs, really. We've seen flashes of him, but we haven't really seen much of him either. So I think that's going to be the watch, is who's less hurt and who's going to play less hurt when they go back to San Antonio. As much as Miami's role players have to step up on the road, as much as Tim Duncan has to play better from game 2, as well as Tony Parker, it's going to come down to, can Manu Ginobili and Dwyane Wade show up, I think. Because if one of those guys shows up, the series could turn. Because I think that, for Miami, Mario Chalmers might show up in games 3 through 5. He might show up. Haslam might show up. Anderson might show. I mean, those guys are maybes because we don't know how good those role players are going to be on the road. We know the Spurs guys are going to show up. So Wade really has to show up because we know LeBron's going to show up in a bigger way as far as points go. As for Ginobili, he might actually be beneficial. He might actually benefit being at home because he may not have to do as much because of, Parker being more comfortable, Danny Green being more comfortable, even Gary Neal being more comfortable. So he may not have to do as much, but still, he's got to find a way to make his presence known in this series. And if he does, it could turn. So that's my prediction for game 3. It's really not about what everybody else is going to do. I think it's going to hinge on those 2 guys. You can talk about LeBron's going to average, 20 points down there. You can talk about Duncan's got to play better than he did in game 2. But Ginobili and Wade, whoever plays better out of those 2, that's how the series is going to hinge on. Peace.